Good morning, everyone. Today we'll discuss inheritance by Bitcoin Family Wallet. So, a shared Bitcoin family wallet sounds like a really simple way for your heirs to inherit upon your death. We'll discuss the advantages of this setup as well as some important drawbacks. Okay, but first, let's sort of define what is a Bitcoin family wallet. It's a shared Bitcoin wallet, but it's not a multi-sig. If most people, when they think shared wallet, think something like a multi-sig wallet. No, we're talking about something different here. We're talking about literally a single sig wallet that multiple family members have access to. It's just shared. So, for example, let's use a hot wallet example. Let's say there's an app that the husband and wife and the kids all have the password and seed phrase to. That's how they go about sharing it. Or if it's a cold storage device like a hardware wallet, maybe the husband and wife, have shared physical custody of that hardware wallet, and the PIN to use it on a transactional basis, as well as the seed phrase, obviously. And then the kids kind of know where mom and dad keep the hardware wallet, and maybe they know the PIN for kind of in case they need to get in there, but maybe they don't have the seed phrase. Just a couple of examples. It could be a lot of different iterations, but just so you have a sense that this is not a multi-sig, but we're talking about a single device or app that multiple family members have some level of access to. Okay? All right. So what are some of the pros of Bitcoin inheritance using a shared family Bitcoin wallet? The biggest pro is that it's compared to other inheritance solutions. It's very easy to set up and maintain. So there's basically no extra steps. If you think of multi-sig or Shamir secret sharing, there's a lot of, on top of what's pretty much pretty complicated notion. Self-custody is not easy, so it's already a bit complicated. And if you add on top of that the additional layer of adding in a multi-sig or a secret sharing or something like that, it gets even more complicated. Whereas, if you've gotten to the point where self-custody is comfortable to you feel like you know what you're doing, then it is easy to set up and maintain. Specifically, when I say maintain, I'm talking about updating the hardware device, keeping the firmware up to date, things like that. But also transacting during your lifetime, right? So if you want to send or sell, do a spend from your wallet during your lifetime, with single sig, it's what it is. Whereas with multi-sig, you have to reconstitute, or you have to get your multiple signatures. And with Shamir Secret Savings, you need to reconstitute your key in order to sign any spending transactions. Again, if you just have a shared family wallet, in this example, the parents, they just sign it with their hardware device, just like they would if they didn't have if they weren't sharing it with the kids. And then lastly, because it's just one wallet and everyone knows that it's in mom's dresser drawer or whatever, there's very little treasure hunting upon death. There's not as much, if you if you find these 8 words over here, or if you find this device in this safe deposit box, you will be on your way to recovering mom and dad's Bitcoin. Now, it's much easier. There's a single device that everyone knows where it is and everyone has access to it. So in that regard, it's much less of a treasure hunt. Yeah. Okay. So that's, those are some of the pros of setting up the Bitcoin family wallet. Of course, there are drawbacks, and it's up to you to decide if this makes sense for you. So some of the cons are, obviously it is extremely poor security during your lifetime and after, to have so many different folks with access to a single wallet. I mean, it makes it a single point of failure. And what do I mean by that? There's a risk of a family member going wayward and, just taking it. We have stories of that in the news, unfortunately. The son who drugged his father to get his hardware wallet. It's very sad. Drugged his afternoon tea. And family is no family is perfect. And if somebody decides they're entitled to something more, they have instant access because everyone knows where the wallet is and so forth. Less nefariously, when you have multiple people who have full access to a signing device or a wallet, you have multiple points of careless error, right? If the son doesn't quite appreciate, how self-custody works and just kind of leaves his copy of the seed phrase or so forth laying around. Now you have, instead of one person who needs to make sure they take good care of, they have good OPSEC for their for the wallet, you have 4 people who have to have that same high level of security. And if they don't, any one of those persons can accidentally, not realize that they shouldn't save it on their computer or type it into a website, thinking, oh, I'll just type it in here onto my Google Drive or something like that, right? Which is a bad idea, just to be clear. So you have multiple points of carelessness as well as, being, hackable, right? Lastly, you have, I guess we kind of covered this, you have various levels of interest and knowledge of self-custody and security. So, right, we kind of covered that. You have multiple family members, and not everyone's going to have the same level of understanding of what needs to be done to keep the family wallet secure. All right, so lastly, let's talk about some inheritance problems from a Bitcoin shared family wallet that are maybe not as intuitive as the natural sort of security problems. All right, so one example we've seen recently is where there's a shared family wallet, and because there's only one wallet, all the different family members have been contributing or purchasing into that wallet. That can cause, who owns that stack, right? It is possible to figure out and piece together which transactions and even which UTXOs belong to which purchaser, but it just seems to be creating a problem, right? Like it creates an accounting or bookkeeping problem, and it creates a higher risk of family drama or even litigation when, if there's any potential disagreement of whose is whose, right? Whether it's divorce or kids thinking, I need my money now to buy a house or go to college or whatever. I need to sell my Bitcoin now. So it just caused the commingling of funds. Let's call it that. Commingling of funds is never a good idea, and this is just one of them. Right? And then you also have the question of, upon death, who's the boss? Who's in charge of this situation? Whenever that's unclear, it does increase the risk of family conflict. So usually upon death, in other situations, you have legal clarity as to who's in charge. It's the named executor or trustee. That's kind of why that exists. Like, the buck stops that person has all the authority, and that person also bears all the responsibility and the risk of making sure that everything is done properly. If you have multiple key holders, then it kind of becomes, or at least there's a risk that it kind of becomes a question of just who decides to start signing transactions first. It's like, who gets there first? That's not really as clear as having a legally appointed person in charge of the situation, or in this case, the estate. It's very easy. We've seen a lot. So it's very easy for us to imagine somebody sweeping the wallet into a different wallet, kind of seizing control of the situation and saying, okay, look, I have the Bitcoin now. It's safe, right? I made sure it's safe. Now, I'll decide who gets what. That is a big risk for a lot of family strife. Most people don't want to create more drama upon their death, and this is a recipe for that. And then lastly, this is very common to any Bitcoin inheritance situation, is will the heirs actually figure it out? So even if you're a Bitcoiner and your kids or even adult kids don't care that much, they might even think, oh, mom and dad are blowing their money on Bitcoin. Oh, silly them. I hope they still have an IRA at least, blah, blah, blah. So if your kids are sort of in that mold, they may not be able to figure it out. We had one client call recently, and she admitted, my son is very intelligent. He's an engineer, or I forget what it was, but he's very intelligent. But he just does not give a hoot about Bitcoin or custody. And he says, "I will figure it out if anything happens to you, Ma." Yes, look. Upon death, things are extremely messy, extremely dramatic, and extremely emotional, and it's not a good recipe for even the smartest individuals to be figuring stuff out on the fly. It just isn't. We've seen very, very, credentialed and intelligent individuals make what would be objectively be called stupid mistakes during probate, just because of the emotional and the pressure of this and the stress of the situation. And if you make a stupid mistake with self-custodied coins, the downside is incredibly high. You could have catastrophic accidental loss, complete loss of the entire stack. There's no backup. There's no unclaimed funds. There's no password reset. So this is a situation where you really don't want to, rely on that, in our opinion. So in that situation, you might want to consider a professional Bitcoin executor, or a friend or family member who's experienced with custody, or a professional service, which we've talked about before. Okay. All right. So, bringing that up, the possible use of a professional executor. Maybe check out my book, How to Hire an Executor. It is not specific to Bitcoin. I don't even have a chapter on Bitcoin in there yet, but it will help you understand generally the notion, because a lot of people aren't familiar with how that service exists. You can hire a professional executor. You don't have to choose amongst your friends and family members. It is not like choosing your best man. You can outsource this to somebody who knows what they're doing. All right. Okay. So as you know, we love this topic. So please email, write in the comments any questions or other topics you think are useful for us to cover regarding Bitcoin inheritance. And I love digging into this stuff and researching and trying to get those answers for you. So let us know. Thanks again, as usual, for listening, and we will talk next time. Take care.